This module is titled The Network Buy Methodology, and we're going to talk about going to ad networks and purchasing media through them. So I'm just going to define what an ad network is here first, and it's a company that aggregates available ad space across a large number of websites and then it sells it to advertisers. And there are many types of ad networks. They range in size from the very large to those that are very targeted on a particular audience. And some of the pros for going to an ad network is that we can get set up very quickly, whereas with a direct site buy, we have to locate those publishers and negotiate the deal. So it allows us to test a lot of sites fast and scale them out. And it also gives us the opportunity to swap out our creatives and offers very quickly, whereas with a direct site, we might have to be dependent on how fast the publisher is going to respond and put those changes into effect. They also are going to serve up our ads. With a direct site buy, we're going to need to pay for a third-party ad server to get our ads hosted and served. It also gives us the opportunity to easily retarget our audiences, which can be very effective, and we're going to talk about that in detail later in the course. We also get to work with a representative at the ad network, but if we get a really good rep, that can be a huge advantage to us for optimizing our campaigns. And some of the cons that come along with buying from an ad network is traditionally there's bigger risk because our minimum spend is much higher, $5,000 to $10,000. And many ad networks are going to take a cut. So when we're working with a publisher directly, both of us are going to get a better deal because what ends up is there's no middleman. And most ad networks are not going to give you that level of transparency and tracking that we're going to get with a direct site buy. And we have to worry about the network rep doing their job. So just like it could be a positive, it could also be a negative. If that network rep is not capable or is not dedicated to optimizing your campaign, that could be very concerning. And our ad networks are still very much designed for brands. And that especially, we're going to go into in detail in a second here, has to do with optimizing and spends and why you hear about these horror stories in regard to media buying. And then an ad network isn't going to tell you where your ads are running to keep you from cutting them out. So essentially it's a black box, and twofold. One, you don't know where your ads are running, and two, this can be concerning for some people because your ad could be running on a publisher that you may not want your brand associated with. But there are some exceptions to this rule as far as, the risk involves. And we're going to show you some sources and how to use them for network buying that are going to hedge your risk. And media buying is inherently risky. It's never a sure thing, but our methods are going to lower that risk and raise your likelihood to success. So you need to realize this. It's not an ace in the hole. It takes a lot of work and optimization. And one of the reasons that people think that network buys is a risky option, and you hear about these stories that circulate about somebody losing their shirt with media buys, many times these are true. And one of the reasons for that is that people come into a network with a buy minimum of sometimes $10,000 and they put up their campaign to test, and that's the limit of their budget. Well, a lot of times what happens here is that they assume that their campaign rep is going to optimize their campaigns according to performance, and that they do, but they don't necessarily do it fast enough for them to replenish their budget. So these ad networks are still very much brand oriented, like we commented earlier, and what will happen is that the $10,000 will go through for a test, and now they can begin to optimize based on their budget. But brands' abilities have the ability to replenish these campaigns and continue without blinking an eye. Whereas us direct response advertisers, we lost $10,000 most likely because we don't have the ability to keep replenishing it. And then thus they turn around and they curse the media buying altogether, which is usually why you hear about these stories. So some of what we're going to show you here is going to limit your risks from anything like that happening. We have some options that will allow you to start small and start testing to see what seems to be working with minimal investment. And what we're going to show you here, there's no barrier to enter. Instead of the minimum of like $4,000 to $10,000 to get started with network traffic, we're going to show you some places to buy ad network traffic for around $500. So in the next section, we're going to get started talking about those options.